So do you guys, do you still have a Carol, you know, that does your policy work? Do you guys work?
I mean, they're based on also they are not policy persons, probably.
Happy fall,
Yeah.
almost there.
Were you, do you guys work students? Or did you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Special.
Stephanie through this and was.
Yeah.
To get more to go.
Where is that location? I read that.
I see the week.
3 weeks.
Two people.
Gonna work out. One day.
Studied the movie for the site. Do this.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Good time.
Great.
Some support by I think it was just.
Trying to pull yourself up. Or he got the thing.
That's not that idea. You know, I mean, everything is still.
I think we have a forum.
We would do the official call, we should have enough people.
You're just
Put
thinking.
Pieces on there, but obviously we still have to do more to the staff.
Turn off their news.
Thank you.
They would say that they're on. He can help with that.
So am I gonna share my screen? So
Rod, do you want me to also do my, oh, do
I'm sorry.
you want me to do my presentation?
We're trying, I just emailed the PowerPoint for We're at the fourth, I can just talk through it. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
that complicated.
Yeah, and I can, that's fine.
I've got paper with me, so.
Okay, great.
this would.
And then we'll see.
Hello, everybody. I can stay over here.
Do you want me to move? I can move down this way.
Thanks for.
Mine-
Oh, so here's what. So what you told us. Okay. Yeah. Now I'm gonna do it from here. I am, a little confused, but it wants the other. Wait a minute.
I need to officially vote in the order. Does someone have a motion to,
You can just call it to order.
call the order?
And she would do the.
Second.
You don't need to have your out on the food or need a motion to.
Don't throw the motion to come in. Good. It's, we're ready for. I had to download some software, it's on Apple,
Oh,
so,
okay, that's. Sorry.
but we'll do DLM.
I am.
So did you call the meeting order at 9:04 a.m.?
She's so hot, Lou.
She's on mute.
Here.
Everyone.
Here.
Oh, here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Wayne Flash,
President,
next set up for us. I haven't heard from her. Lisa Noel. Here. Sharon Mitchell. Here. Mike Nichols is absent. Lillian Eunice. Here, okay. Carol Rodriguez. Here. Wilma Schmitz. Form. No one started giving out of the form.
It's it.
Wait a minute. Okay, yes, you do.
Good. So, asking for the approval of the meeting minutes, I do have one correction.
Okay,
On item 3. For one, it's a home care report. It's on recess now.
oh. Okay, I'll make the change.
Any other corrections? Any motion for approval of meeting minutes? Second. In favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Presented.
It's a favor.
Oh, in favor, okay. Motion passes. We're gonna skip old business right now. We have an interesting agenda item. Really, we're a little mysterious about during the invitation, but it's related to the senior fund, and I'm gonna turn the meeting over right now to Jamie Upsall to bring us up to speed.
Great, and I'm actually, would you like to start the conversation?
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it to Claire.
I'd be happy to. Good morning, everybody. My apologies. I'm Claire Hundelt. I'm a St. Louis County resident my life, never left St. Louis County, born and raised. I'm also the executive director of the Merrimack Mission Fund, formerly Daughters of Charity Foundation. And we have been involved since we were created. We are a program, part of Ascension Health System. We were created after the sale of DePaul Hospital. So since 1995, we have been operationally a charitable foundation. Health Conversion Foundation is how it's typically framed. And we have been supporting programs that support older adults for about the last 25 years. And I haven't been there 25 years. I've been about 13, but I am the executive director, and I have been involved with the original seniors count effort to pass the tax levy, which was successful. Jamie is now the president and executive director of the one in the city. Our foundation saw a tremendous opportunity to take advantage of an enabling language for a ballot initiative, a tax levy that was written in 1990 that would allow each county to put in front of their residents to approve a tax levy to create a senior fund with its sole purpose to support older adults living independently with dignity and addressing the primary needs of older adults. And in 2012, we funded the polling research to support this. We engaged Terry Jones, who's no longer doing this work out of UMSL, and the polling results came back favorable. I was naive at the time. I thought, well, this is an opportunity to do something really regional. Let's get St. Louis County, St. Charles, and St. Louis City together, and let's do this as a region. Well, it doesn't work that way. It's a county by county initiative. And as it turned out, the polling results came favorable, but that was the advice from the polling experts said, you better wait till 2016. I'm like, no way, 3.5 years. But it took everything to get to that point. We engaged Carl Wilson, a very experienced, knowledgeable person who actually wrote the enabling language for the St. Louis County Children's Service Fund, Mental Health Fund. And he designed what this campaign would look like. And then the next thing we did is we built a leadership around what that would look like. Leadership of the various nonprofit or entities that know these issues best. And they in turn created a campaign, and we hired Jamie. Actually, I had to talk her out of her job, convince her to come over and do this work. And that was in 2014.
I think so.
October 14th.
Yeah.
And so then we worked very cooperatively with the county councils and St. Charles and the city. It was very proactive and positive. But it was November of 2016. And it was challenging. It was a challenging election for everybody. As you know, the city passed. The St. Louis County did not pass. It missed it by 1%. And then a couple of years ago, the provider groups, the leaders of these organizations started coming together and saying, why don't we do this again? Doesn't mean we can't try it again. And for various reasons, it was brought forward and then decided to suspend and then brought forward. And then finally we decided, let's just pay for the polling research. Again, it's a foundation to support the city where we are. we see that as as an advocacy for older adults, not older adults residents, but also for our nonprofit organizations who are tasked with caring for older adults. And then the polling research, we were recommended to a couple of firms, and we chose Rod's firm, excellent, and did some excellent work. And the polling results came back favorable. This was in June. We got the polling results back. And then we have since been gathering the like minds of organizations to come together and help us kickstart this idea of promoting a campaign. We have decided that we're going to look towards April of 2026, off-year election. But as Rod will explain, there's a lot of support for justifying that decision, and it's okay to do this in an election year. There's a lot of other details that we can fill you in on later about sort of the mechanics of how this might work. But what's really different about this time, and where the energy is off the charts, is that we have a living example. We have St. Louis City Seniors Fund. We're going to see, you're going to hear about the impact that's happening. And I'm going to say from a personal message, we are, our foundation was formed, Ascension, is influenced by St. Vincent de Paul. So we're Vincentian, which we're very laser-like focused on the most vulnerable. And we saw this as a win-win. And when I think about what we have invested, we invested about $250,000 over the period of time before this passed, for now a $2.4 million annual return on investments. That's not bad. So we know that there's just good people who rally behind this, and good laws to support things from going off the rails. And at the end of the day, we can look just a little east. I will say that at Merrimack Mission Fund, half of all of our applications that come in are requests for older adults. This particular cycle, which we are under review right now, we usually get about 30 applications a year, and we have over 60. And it seems like everyone's asking for the maximum amount. It's very telling to see the reports, the applications coming. We keep, we serve both city and county, but the senior fund can only support the city. So how do we, and we try to make that up, but we can't, we don't have enough funds. And less than 5% of all charitable foundations support older adults. Just let that sink in there for a minute. The competition, the competition against really important issues in children education and other things in animal welfare are real and important, but this is an opportunity for us to get the needs of older adults. So we are very excited as a foundation. We were supportive from the beginning to the end. I like to think as charitable foundations, that my colleagues that have also helped and support this, we'd like to say we lead from the back of the room to allow the community to take charge. And that's how we envision this happening this time. Anything else I should add?
I think you can talk about tonight, this afternoon.
Sure. Okay, bring up today. So this is culminated into a presentation today at 3 o'clock at the Heights, where we're going to present within an hour and a half the background of why and make the case for what could happen, what if we had your support. We're going to be calling out for organizations to step up. We need leaders in the community to join us in this. That was the secret sauce of the last time, was the community. And that's what we have to pursue, doggedly pursue in getting the community. So today we're expecting about 70, 75 people, 75 organizations represented from 3 to 4:30. You're all welcome to join us. It's free to all. Of course, we have a very clear package. Jamie and I, we're looking at who the presenters are right here, with the exception of Navy Green and one of the nonprofit beneficiaries of the St. Louis City Fund, who also serves the county. So we're kicking it off. Yeah, I think the train's leaving the station it's leaving the station this morning. We think that you and your tireless efforts of advocating for the needs of older adults are critical for us to know how to get through this to the finish line. And so we're here really primarily to introduce ourselves, introduce this concept. You don't have all the answers. You know, we're just on good faith. We know the end result of what we want to do, and we think that we have a fighting chance.
And just to let you know, I think one of the other differences is this time we know how to do a campaign.
Yeah.
We were very fortunate last time to have Carol Rodriguez as the chair of the St. Louis County Task Force. The Coach campaign.
Coach you and Nathan, right?
And they did a phenomenal job. And I'm just here to let you know that this is a Missouri state statute. Claire said it was written and passed in 1990. St. Louis City became the 55th out of 115 counties. The city is considered a county, the state of Missouri, quasi, to have a senior levy fund. It is a very small levy fund compared to other human service levy funds. It's 5 cents on $100 of assessed valuation. So basically for a home that's worth $200,000, it's less than $20 a year. The funds are collected, and for the purposes of serving people ages 60 plus in your county. And it is, the funds are not overseen by the county, but actually by a board appointed by the county, a 7-member board that it oversees the funds and the administration of those funds. And if passed in St. Louis County, it's projected that in St. Louis City, we bring in a little over 2.5 million. If passed in St. Louis County, it's projected anywhere between 12 and 15 million a year. The funds are how a county decides how they want to use the funds is up to those 7 members of the board. The city of St. Louis, what we did is a needs assessment and identified both with surveying our residents and focus groups and looking at data that was available. We were able to identify several different areas, and as you can see from your handout, these are what we call our fund-defined grants. We focus on economic security issues. We help people fill out the National Council on Aging Economic Benefit Assessment. We help people with heat and air conditioning in the winter and the summer, home repairs. We fund a lot of programs and services that help people with rent and mortgage assistance. We fund fall prevention programs. We fund the legal services of East Missouri. In fact, one of our we have just updated the Missouri. Many of you have seen the older adult elder law handbook that's been around since the 70s. We just funded that as an update with Health Literacy Missouri. So now it's at a 6th grade reading level, and it will be. And we hired a graphic artist to redesign the book with links to all the needed information.
Because you found that was a need.
Because we found that was a need. We also plug in funding for matching grants. Many times people need matching grants for transportation services that they have a hard time finding. When the St. Louis Area Agency on Aging funds were cut significantly for meals, we were able to do meals for them. We actually did a pilot Lyft program to provide transportation for older adults in the city. So there's all kinds of different programs and services that can be funded that allow older adults to age in community, and that is the main purpose of the funds. So with that, I will stop talking and let Rod talk to you a little bit about the polling results, unless you have any questions about the senior levy fund and how it can be used.
You said 7 members of the board. What is the board?
So a senior levy, the Missouri state statute requires that the funds be overseen by a 7-member board appointed by the county council. and approved by the county executive.
And the parameter, or
They have to live in St. Louis County.
that's the only,
Mhm.
they have to be seniors?
I do not. We do, have all older adults, on our board. But you do not have to be an older adult to be on that board.
Slideshow, it'll hopefully spring.
And what's nice is that you all have representation on this commission with the 7 county council districts. So having a member of each council is council district is obviously a plus.
If you don't get rid of it, it's fine, but it-
While we're waiting, I might ask, is it too early to get elected officials involved? And might there be any this afternoon? Just too early there.
So what elected official do you think?
Yeah.
So last time what we learned is that if we do a petition drive, it's about $1 million to get it on the ballot. What we did last time is we just worked with the county council, of which we found the majority supporting, and we didn't have to spend $1 million to get signatures. We are hoping, because your role here as the Aging Commission is to advise your county counselor on issues important to older adults, that you would be interested in partnering to be able to provide input on this and to get this placed on the ballot.
So I'm thinking about that statewide needs assessment, and we paid to drill down in St. Louis County further. And so those results should be coming part of the master plan on aging. So, and I'm just thinking all those pieces will start fitting together.
Really uniquely tiny.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's another reason why Mayor Lake Mission Fund thought this timing was great because of the master plan on aging. Also because we know, the county council, Department of Human Services budget in the last 10 years has been cut in half. We know that state level services for older adults, community-based services for older adults has been cut significantly, as you guys all well know. And that's why we are finding that even our funds go like this, because the need is so great. As the population is aging, the funding is going. One of the benefits that legislators find very appealing about this is that it's county voters decide whether they want this property tax. It's a small property tax compared to others. And the control is in the county, and the decisions on how it's going to be funded are made by your council, not your county council, but your county steering committee, your board. Thank you, couldn't think of the word. So it's residents that are making decisions on how those funds are going to be spent.
As well as communication back. I know you do a great deal of effort communicating back, accounting to the residents about what's happening, what's being done.
If you go to our website, you can see our annual reports. Our next one's going to be out probably in the next week. I think the other thing is not only we've funded over 40 agencies that just in our 7 years, a minimum of at least $20,000 to provide services. The other thing that we have funded, I mentioned that we fund things like matching grants where people need a matching grant for vehicles and so forth. But we also were able to fund, programs and services through St. Andrew's Solutions and Jewish Family Services that provide in-home services for people who don't qualify for Medicaid. So people who just make a little bit too much, they don't have any resources. And so we try to plug in where other funding opportunities just don't exist.
Could you just mention the emergency funding that you did just briefly, because that was really a lifeline for a lot of residents.
So one of the other areas that we fund that's not included in this is we have we have 2 different funds besides our fund define, which is identified by our needs assessment. We have funding to deal with emergencies, but we also have funding for different research projects. And so we were able to do help support the home repair study that identified the actual need in the St. Louis area for home repairs is more like in the millions of dollars. So we have now a denominator of what the actual need is. But with the emergencies this year, we had a very similar emergency that you had here in St. Louis County with the abrupt closure of a nursing home, Northview Nursing Home, and the abrupt closure of the Heritage House Senior Apartments. And just like Santa Ana closed, we were able to, on December 26th, our board met and approved $174,000 to address these emergencies. As a result, we were able to hire case managers from many of these organizations to go in and meet with, the nursing home was closed with an hour's notice. People were abandoned at Northview Nursing Home. Families didn't know where their loved ones had all been sent to 15 different nursing homes and they had no idea where they were at. We were able to send the next week case managers to all of the residents in those nursing homes, and we were able to purchase things. They were moved with just the clothes on their backs. Some people didn't even have coats or shoes, and they were moved in the middle of the night in December. So we were able to replace those items. And then with the Heritage House, we worked with the city mayor's office, and we were able to provide emergency funding to put people in hotels until and then hire case managers to come in and help identify new housing opportunities for these people who had been living in a very low rent senior housing facility. It's very difficult to find housing for people who are paying $600 and $700 a month in rent. But we were able to house 85% of those residents. But if we didn't have the senior levy fund in the city of St. Louis, and this is what we were told, these people would have been unhoused. And we're talking about, when you combine both groups, it was just 180 people just in Northview Nursing Home and over 120 people in Heritage House. So that is significant.
What legal services do you provide? What type?
We fund a full-time elder law attorney for legal services of Eastern Missouri. So we fund, like should I say, we pay for part of that person's salary and then part of a social MSW that works at legal services.
Can you kind of explain what do they do?
Yes, they help people that have issues with eviction, gets evicted, people that need any kind of elder law, need an attorney but can't afford it. They help with people who get cut off of Medicaid, housing services. I'm trying to think of some of the other things that they do. It's quite unique to be able to, direct people to someone who can help them with an array of legal services, and just having someone who's devoted full time to older adults. When I visit Legal Services of Eastern Missouri, they have all of these lawyers that are devoted to children, and they have one that's devoted to older adults. And so again, with additional funding, we could have more older adult, more lawyers at organizations that serve older adults.
Do they serve them? Like we had a meeting a while back, and they were talking about beneficiaries and trustees.
Yes, exactly. Helping people to make sure that the wealth is transferred to their families. They do a lot of that with our the social workers. They also assist. We fund 5 different agencies to do the National Council on Aging Economic Benefit Assessment. We find that many older adults, they actually are eligible for services but don't simply know about it. And then when they have difficulty, and so one of the things that we're actually working on is with the home repair network is connecting the people who are doing the home repairs, when they go and do the home repairs, to make sure that they do have that transfer deed on death to their family members. We're trying to connect these different partners so that there's more collaboration of services and everything, so that things aren't just siloed. And that's one of the benefits of receiving grant applications. You will see how there's all these siloed approaches, and you can help connect and provide more of an array of services for residents in the county. And that's one of the benefits, I think, of having a senior levy fund.
So is that almost or the same as like pro bono, they do it for free?
Yeah, they would,
Like I would contact you, say I got XXX.
yes, they do not charge the residents because we are paying for that service. So the services that we are funding, there's no charge to the residents. You just have to be 60 years of age and live in the city of St. Louis.
City, what about county?
That's why we.
That's what we did.
That's why I wrote, that's what you.
I did that on purpose.
So Claire,
Funding through the area agency for St. Louis County at Legal Services. So there is funding for St. Louis County residents at Legal Services of Eastern Missouri. We pay it also. So,
Okay, but
yeah.
yeah, how do we get the word to the city? Because I know quite a few that has this. And more questions came about when we had this meeting where they were talking about the trustee. I didn't know myself, lots of them, but how do we get that to them? Because they, yeah.
I think what ultimately after this discussion, or I think one of the goals for us could be to vote and decide what our support will be. And I think, one of the ways we can help is to lobby our council members. Seriously lobby, and we need their support to get them to vote yes on this, to get it on the ballot. I have some questions regarding the role of the board. I know that, as Claire mentioned, since this entity exists in the city already, and there's a lot to be learned by what has been accomplished in the city, the question would be, what sort of criteria do they set up for determining need for, who gets a grant, who doesn't get a grant? Is it the advice of the leadership?
We have community members who are grant reviewers. We have over 20 different community members that review the grants when they come in and identify which grants get funded and which ones do not. And then we make those recommendations go to the board, and the board makes the final decision. And I, as the executive director, make sure that it stays within the budget that we have.
Are the community members paid, or is this?
They get stipends. They receive stipends. We make sure that we have community members represented from every area of the city of St. Louis.
And you have a scoring tool that we all can use and it's consistent.
Yes, they use the same tool and our board members are also represented on each of the teams. So on the team, each grant review team are 3 community members, 1 board member, and 1 staff member.
And private foundations may do it a lot differently. We have staff that are content experts. And then our job is to be in the community and be listening, be a part of what these conversations are having, to become aware and make sure that that voice is represented in what we end up deciding. We have a board that we make, as staff, we make recommendations, and then our board makes the final decision.
So you had alluded to the fact that by state statute, there's a 7-member board. We have commissioners that represent 7 districts. Are you suggesting that our 7 members that represent those districts could become that board?
To me, that would make a lot of sense because you're already appointed by your county council and approved by the county executive, correct?
Yes.
So it's the same process. To me, it would make the most sense. But that would be up to it would be up to your county executive, your county council.
So we do have members of our commission that are involved in many of the organizations that you've mentioned. I sit on the advisory council now of the Home Repair Network, for instance. I was past chair of STL Village, which is a recipient of the city funds. So how would that impact the makeup of the board?
So you would have to just recuse yourself on voting for any organization. Actually, you would not be able to serve on those boards moving forward if you wanted to stay on the county the 7-member board.
I suspect that those organizations would gladly bump me off.
For the quid pro quo, yeah. Yes.
So is this something that this commission is interested in pursuing? I mean, and at what level?
I'm sorry, just for like an official vote, because we didn't have an action item to vote on it, but I'd ask you to table that to next meeting. We could just discuss it today, but any sort of
Okay, so we
action.
won't be
item.
making an actual vote.
Do you want to go through the polling results?
Yes, that would be excellent.
Rod?
I'll just kind of yell, flip slides if that works, and one, go ahead and go to the second slide. My name's Rod Wright. I'm with a company called Creative Entourage. We were referred to do this work from Terry Jones, who I worked with back in the dark days of when I was on the faculty and staff at the University of Missouri St. Louis. Unlike Terry, I decided to do this full time. Terry stayed on the faculty. We do a lot of nonpartisan work throughout the country. The last survey we did on a county-wide proposal was more than county-wide. We did all the vote yes work for St. Louis Community College. There's a pretty recent rate increase that was on the ballot. And as you know, the community college district covers the city, the county, and then smidgens of Franklin and Jefferson County. So it's kind of a big effort. We did this survey in June. And like a lot of polling companies now, we like using a couple of methodologies to provide a high level of reliability on the results. So the newest the kind of way of doing polling these days that produces highly reliable results is what's called an online or internet panel. The survey companies across the United States, survey sampling companies, have randomly recruited people that are paid to take surveys. So you don't run into response rate problems or problems getting people on the phone. We did 500 of those surveys in St. Louis County. We also, to check the reliability of the responses, did a 200 sample telephone survey. As you can imagine, telephone surveys have gotten awfully expensive. But what I wanted to mention to you was that when we compared the two studies, there were no questions where the results were more than 0.5% apart. So we ended up with a 700 sample survey because we combined the results of the two methodologies. We asked, well, you can go to the next slide. We always ask some kind of warm-up questions about the direction of the state or the country or the direction of the county. The one thing I wanted to mention was the, if you could back up one slide, I'm sorry.
She was there, sorry.
Yeah, kind of mentioning how few people commented that St. Louis County is moving in the right direction. Only a quarter of the sample. It wasn't all that long ago before those numbers would have been at least twice that high. There is, and you'll see throughout the survey, a certain amount of skepticism about St. Louis County and government in St. Louis County. And I don't think that's unusual. Skepticism about government has increased everywhere. But that has become a problem in St. Louis County and kind of raises the issue of making sure if you're going to collect money for a certain purpose, to make sure that money goes for that certain purpose. People are wanting some level of reliability about that. We asked a question about how people would vote 2 times in the survey. One was early in the survey, it was literally question 3. I'm sorry, I moved to the next slide. And then again, towards the end of the survey, before the demographic questions. First time we asked the question, support was right at 55%. After people answered a series of questions about the proposal, we asked again, the question literally says, taking everything you've heard into account, and support went all the way up to 63.4%, which indicates that's a lot of movement. And it indicates that people responded very positively to the messages and the facts that they learned in the course of the survey. We broke that support down by a bunch of different behavioral and demographic categories. Of all the items on the survey, there was only one category where support was less than a majority on reconsideration, and that was Republican identifiers. The really interesting pattern was on age, where the highest level of support was from 35 to 74 years of age, much higher than it was for 18 to 34-year-olds and higher than it was for 75-year-olds. And that was the demographic breakdown. That's what led us to rethink what kind of ballot this might look better on November versus an April ballot with lower turnout. I've obviously been at this a long time, and what is happening in our businesses used to be on a tax increase proposal like this, support was always higher among younger voters, lower among older voters. And so you would go on high turnout ballot versus lower turnout ballot. Those patterns have changed quite a bit very recently, and the survey indicates those patterns. And it made spring look like a more attractive option than November, especially when you factored in the cost of actually running the Vote Yes campaign and how many households you had to communicate with. In St. Louis County, there's something like 660,000 registered voters. That may translate into 350,000 households. So how many of them do we need to talk to? And literally printing and postage and those things, all those factors get a little cheaper in the November election. We also break down the results by geography, and it was really, I won't cover the whole thing, but the lowest level of support was an area that I kind of call Manchester. It was the area in and around Manchester and Town and Country in that part of the county. If you went further west, support interestingly went up, like out in the Wildwood area. Higher levels of support were found in what I nicknamed the Creve Core area, kind of the central area, Clayton, Webster Groves, Kirkwood, that kind of central St. Louis County. A surprisingly good, strong level of support in South County. And again, that's an area where a lot of times you don't do very well on an election like this. Bottom line, there was nothing in the demographics that indicated that there was any kind of real problems or kind of issues that would kind of rise up and be a problem. The next series of questions were just some statements about public issues. And the green bar is agree, the gray bar is disagree, the blue is don't know. The one I wanted, you could read those up there. You can see the first two show a very high level of support for what we're trying to do. The middle one was, again, the concerning one about the county. Much of the money funding county programs is wasted and not spent as intended. That was nearly 2/3 of the respondents. So again, that if there's any negative issue out there, it's not so much the issue in the program, it's kind of the distrust of government that there is. The 64% that said they can't afford to pay higher property taxes is about average nationwide right now. Some areas it's under 60, some places it's up around 70. We oftentimes will put a parallel question on there that would say something like, I'm willing to support higher taxes to provide services to whatever it is. And interestingly enough, 60-some-odd% will agree with that. So you've got some people that on the one hand say they can't afford higher taxes, property taxes, but on the other hand say they will pay higher taxes for a specific purpose. So, again, that was, when we put together kind of a game plan for a referendum, that was just a question that we wanted to be able to cross tab against. And down at the bottom, another question about leadership in the county. 43% said they would trust county leadership in making decisions that affect people like me. You could go to the next bar chart. You can skip that. That's the same question, but in tabular form. Some people like seeing it in tables. And then there's another bar chart that is priorities for the fund, where people would like to see money spent. The green is a very or somewhat high priority. The gray is a very or somewhat low priority. Again, the blue or the others don't know. Point I wanted to mention is I think 3 of the top 5 have something to do with housing. It is a very, very strong issue, including the very first one where you've got virtually everybody saying that preventing older adults from having to become homeless is a high priority. Transportation was the second one, then another one about housing. The kind of aging in home and helping people, preventing homelessness was a very powerful issue. Again, I won't read the rest of these. Down at the bottom of the list are things, services not covered by Medicare. But kind of the point I want to make about this, they're all 2/3 and higher. We're not talking about high versus low. We're talking about degrees of high in terms of providing these services. Kind of bottom line, when people found out what the money was going to be used for across the board, it was kind of a popular thing. You can skip the next table too, because that's the one in tabular form, and go to this. And then the last thing that we did, we like to on our surveys, test messaging to help put together what we call a theme and message document. We have delivered that document, and where that takes the survey results and breaks down communications into 3 major talking points or theme, takes greater, less filling for those of us. Miller Ledger, I'm sorry. And we have done that with the survey in terms of breaking down the messages. But again, you can see on that, the green, is a category was much or somewhat more inclined to support the proposal. The gray was the opposite of that, with the blue responding that they didn't know. Again, you can see the top one had that staying longer in their homes and had to do with homeless. That was all at 76%. Saving caregivers a lot of money. The third one was many adults trying to age in place. Again, that issue of homeless. But again, I won't read all of these, but what we have done is put all of this into a theme and message document where you can take the survey results and kind of begin to creatively think how to package them for materials and communications that will go out. I joke with leadership all the time. For example, a school superintendent, they can give 30 reasons to vote yes on something, but they can't get 3. And the trick is to boil down what we're wanting to go forward with into kind of 3 very compelling talking points, and then fleshing that out with message points. So that's really the end of the survey. I have that broken down into tabular form also, but I want to go back and mention something earlier, is that kind of when I went into this, my preconception was we'd probably be looking at a high turnout November election as kind of the best chance to go with a proposal. But after doing the survey, my best guesses are always wrong. That's why we do research. But after we did the survey and looked at the demographics, it certainly changed my mind, and we talked about it at the table and sort of tentatively looked at thinking that April was a better opportunity for going than maybe November. And from a campaign perspective of what you actually spend on the campaign, I mentioned that it's kind of a no-brainer. The electorate's smaller in April, so you spend less money on April elections versus November. And in November in Missouri, of course, there's always statewide stuff going on that can help get in the way of messages penetrating. So let me stop. I promised I'd be brief, so.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is really, really amazing information to think about. 2 questions.
Sure.
One, how do these results compare to the last survey done?
You're more positive in the county than the previous survey was.
I mean, more than 1% better?
Probably 5% at least, weren't they?
Oh, no, I don't think quite that much.
I thought they
I
were
think last time
right
it
at
was at 50, it was around 54%.
54 in the overall or in the county?
Are you there? We lost video.
So do one county at a time. Campaign.
We lost video. And then, are they back?
Back, thank you.
We're thinking, and the third thing was that we started doing education 2 years out. Really where we need is move the education to the last 8 weeks before the election, so that it's on the minds of people as they're going. The other thing is do not go during a presidential election, as Ron said, because last time we weren't able to purchase, even with the funds that we did have, we weren't able to purchase, as Carol remembers, any kind of media or commercials or anything about the levy.
The other question is, Carol and I have talked about this, since the county is now accepting or soon to be accepting applications for the property tax freeze, what impact will that have on voters? And is there anything telling in your results?
We didn't have any data that speculated about that, but you gotta think it's gonna help. Two things that I failed to mention that I should have. One was, I would be careful saying we want to do what the city is doing and going forward with this. It wasn't a huge difference, but I think it's best practices about what 50 other counties are doing, not we should do this because the city is doing this. That's kind of a negative way of saying the same thing. The other thing that was really interesting on this survey was we specifically asked about what the tax was going to cost an average homeowner. Normally, that's a question that is off-putting. On this survey, I know Dr. Charles Leonard, who helped me with this, was kind of surprised by that. 66% said that they made them more likely to support the proposal. And the reason for that is it's just not much money. And we need to get that information out there. We know from focus groups, by the way, that we've done over the years, that people don't have a clue what a penny costs them. We've asked college-educated focus groups, how much does a 1 cent property tax increase in Missouri cost the owner of a $100,000 house? And they don't know, but they all say it's over $100.
Yeah.
Anybody at the table know what the answer to that is?
Well, it's.
Penny on 100,000.
So it's only, you only assess the value of up to 19.
It's $1.90.
Yeah, I was gonna say so.
Not over $100. And so when people find out how, and she mentioned this, how little it cost, it was a huge positive. So you gotta think that people that's had their property taxes frozen are gonna see that as a plus. It's.
I just had a question. So for those people who've had their property tax frozen, can they, how will this work? Let's say my property taxes are frozen this year, and then next year we add this as an additional tax. Property.
I think it, we will ask our attorney about that and make sure. But it's my assumption that if I have a house that is assessed at, let's say, $300,000, that amount is frozen. So the increase, it's a nickel or 10 cents. I can't.
5 cents.
Nickel. So the nickel will apply against that. And forever.
Yeah, I guess my question is, can they add an additional tax on?
Or once it's frozen, does it
Once
stay
it's frozen, well, it's still frozen, which
That is a good question.
Yeah, I don't know.
the attorney in the room probably
I
doesn't
don't
know away.
have that in these.
But it is a good point, because I think it will ask it.
Yeah.
It's an optics
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, well, we need to talk.
Yeah, whether it's the rate that's frozen or the assessment that's frozen or both,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
right? Right, and I don't know the answer to that. We will certainly have that though.
Have you started talking about numbers? Like what are you estimating the campaign's gonna cost? Do we know that yet?
Yeah, so we're thinking,
About $750,000 to $800,000.
And then the last time, I think MFH and others.
they donated towards the education campaign, but they cannot donate to the
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, campaign. So what they can do is provide funding for the educational campaign in preparation. Once we tell people to vote yes, we have to raise funds. And I think what you're gonna find is, let me give you an example. There's one of the organizations that we fund, since in the last 7 years, has already brought in over $700,000 in grants. So, and when they gave to the campaign, they gave 35,000. Again, a great return on your investment. I think because we funded,
It's not like you did this with this, it's not.
it's not,
We just fit perfectly within the scope of serving those in need.
right, I'm not saying that that's how we decide who we fund. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is people now understand, they didn't before, you know, they were giving to a campaign, but they didn't realize, wow, now I can actually have another organization that I can apply to for funding.
And so what might be, and maybe this is too early on to ask, but what percentage of the, let's say, 800,000 might be grant funded for education? And then where do you want, what other organizations to step up?
We think that this is our best guess at this point, based on what we did last year, about $500,000 for the education campaign. And about $350 for the, vote yes.
50 to 500.
The answer on the cost of the campaign also, you know, one of the things that we've talked about around the table is using the next year for some serious stakeholder strategy. And the more successful that is, the more that takes a little bit of the demand for activity from the campaign committee. For example, the community college got tremendous support from hospitals and the big hospital chain and labor unions, because a lot of what they were doing was job training, but particularly for the medical industry. And not only did, for example, the big hospitals donate money to the campaign, but they did a lot of internal communications with their employees. And so we need to find the organizations that will not only perhaps help financially, but help kind of in that stakeholder strategy. And we've got not a long time, but we've got a year to kind of make that happen and creatively think who those folks are. You know, who can we reach out to and get help? I mean, to me, the Labor Council is an obvious place to go, like it was for the community college, just simply because it helps their retirees and it helps their retirees' loved ones, you know, in terms of the services that they need to provide. So that will help abate a little bit, you know, the budget that will be put together for the Vote Yes effort. All, you know, it's a big county and the cost is skyrocketing, so we have to be prepared for that also.
Hello, I'm sorry that I was late. I'm Lillian Eunice and I'm representing District 1. So I'm glad we're meeting in person, so it's good to see everybody again. So real briefly, this is the question. I know for the stakeholder and stakeholder management for the information campaign, as well as the Vote Yes campaign. Who is putting together the message point, you know, the key points for messaging that every single municipality throughout St. Louis County can have and can get these groups in, and we're all consistent on the messaging, something simple enough for older adults to understand. I know when my mother was living and I was doing public relations and lobbying for Southwestern Bell, if she could understand it as an older person, everybody understands it. So those key points, we'll be putting that together, and do we have that resource together yet?
Are you talking about the messaging for the campaign or the messaging once it's passed about the services?
Either.
Either? So I will tell you that for the campaign, that's part of the budget, is to develop the messaging. Actually, Missouri Health has already funded some materials for any county that wants to run a senior levy campaign. We had a grant from them. St. Louis City Senior Fund actually helped with a couple of their senior levy funds across the state to start an association of senior levy funds. We have put together a toolkit for counties that want to pass a senior levy fund. In that toolkit, Missouri Foundation for Health paid for this grant, provided us funding to be able to provide communication tools. We will use the information from polling, from local polls, to help feed the information that goes into those messaging campaigns. But so part of the messaging to people will be, as Rod said, in the budget, and Claire said in the budget for the education campaign. And then as soon as we put on, last time what we did is we used the same materials. And then when we transitioned to the Get Out the Vote campaign, we put a sticker on the top that said Vote Yes. And then then we use that. It's the same messaging, but it helped us to keep continually telling people the same thing. And then we transitioned to a different bank account for that, and 2 different bank accounts.
Well, that consistency is going to be fantastic, so thank you for that clarification. In addition, though, this group of people with all of our resources, will we have a chance to review what those message points are so that we can ensure that they really are to the point, simple enough, everybody gets it, just like the example that you used about the 1% and all of that. So that if we do that, as a final look-see after it's developed, that may be very helpful before the final is printed and we're ready to go. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Lily, you certainly have skills in that area.
Well, so experience, just, but still, I mean, just so that we're all on the same page, all talking the same language, and that we know our constituents.
Right.
And we know the stakeholders as well, so that we can look at whatever's developed for us, professional people developing it from these surveys and the polls and all. We look at that and go, yeah, that looks great, those 10 points. On these 5, we may need to clarify, just tweak it a little bit or what have you. And that may be a good thing that we.
So to let you know, today and this afternoon, everyone is invited to the community meeting that we're going to be presenting this information to stakeholders. And we will be asking for volunteers to serve on a steering committee, volunteers to be on a communication committee, volunteers to be Claire and Rod. What are some of the other committees that we will have?
We're looking at
Outreach.
the effort, fundraising,
And
obviously, canvassing or direct voter contact communications to help kind of have set eyes for the communications and community outreach.
Yes, thank you. See, that's why we get a bunch of brains on this. So last time, that's another thing that we learned is that we had a lot of work that was given to very few, and now we're going to spread that work out.
We're real.
I have a question
We've done on having subcommittees on a campaign that work hard and have well-defined responsibilities and report to the chair. So it's kind of a pyramid structure. The other thing that you were talking about that I wanted to mention is, we do a lot of nonpartisan work and work for a bunch of municipalities, not just in St. Louis County, but all over. I've never worked for a city that didn't have some kind of program for aging adults there are varying levels of activity, but it's a priority for city government. And that just seemed like to me a natural place to kind of plug into. I lived in Webster Groves a long time, now I live in Brentwood, but they get called often having a problem with a loved one that they need help with. And I just can't help but think that those cities would like to have this resource that they could recommend to people.
And then,
So that's another stakeholder and that April election, by the way, is, that's their election. That's a municipal cycle.
Right, because I'm the city administrator right now in the municipality here in St. Louis County. All the city administrators, we need to have this information so that the city, whatever city they're working in, can get that aging group together, do a little, a little snack kind of thing and be able to share the information that we put together.
and they are also eligible, so who is eligible to receive these funds? Not-for-profits and government entities, so they can apply for the funding.
Hey, Lisa.
Lisa, I think had a question.
Yeah, Lisa Hotley had her hand up. Lisa?
Yes, thanks. I had a comment and a question. My comment was regarding the failed vote back in 2016. I wanted to remind everybody, or at least let those that didn't know, the first meeting of the Older Adult Commission for St. Louis County was October of 2016. So Carol was appointed just a couple of months before that. And so when she shared information regarding this upcoming vote, we had no impact and we had no developed strategy to help support anything. So now we have this infrastructure in place as the Older Adult Commission that is much more solid. And now we've got time to develop a strategy to support this. My question then is, the timeline / deadline for council approval or engagement, because that's tied to how much this campaign will cost. Can you walk through an ideal timeline for us to begin taking action?
And are you asking us or your legal consultant?
I'm asking if, based on other campaigns that you've seen, I don't know the structure of each or each city that has passed this, but we have this older adult commission in place. We influence council. That's what we're charged to do, is to recommend policies, programs, procedures that benefit older adults. When do we, I mean, obviously we do that in an ongoing manner, but for this campaign, if council doesn't approve this and we would have to take this and pay to put it on the ballot instead, like when is that deadline that we need to know council support and how we begin a strategy to influence that? And anyone can answer that who has knowledge.
Mid-January is when it has to be on the ballot, so.
But we're talking a year from.
2026.
Yeah,
Right.
I think timing is super important.
What we've been talking about is using the remainder of this year with all that's going on, not to be outwardly focused, but to put together kind of the infrastructure for an informational stakeholder effort. And then also begin thinking about the vote yes effort. And then really trigger it in January with a very aggressive informational effort. If the council puts this on the ballot, they have that deadline is 70 days before the election. And so if you count back from whatever the election date is in April, if you count back 10 Tuesdays, you get to that date, and it's usually in late January sometime, like around January 24th. The question I don't have the answer to is if we have to do a petition drive to get it on the ballot, how soon do those signatures have to be submitted for the county election board to confirm or verify them so they can meet the 70-day deadline for getting it on the ballot? And I don't know what that is, and hopefully we'll have council support and won't have to worry about that.
I would also add that I think we're trying to form a steering committee for this campaign. And one of the first charges with them is develop a timeline, but we all agree that meeting with you was a first order of business, and then earning your support. And I think as soon as we can hone in on the messages and give you all those messages and to be consistent, as you said, and Rod said the top three, we need a little time to put that together, but we could begin as early as this fall. I don't know when the timing works for I mean, it just depends on how fast we can put this campaign together.
I would like to propose that once the data comes out from the needs assessment, I think that will serve as a real foundation and give us an opportunity. I mean, this is just top of mind, but an opportunity to say to the county council and the county executive, we would like to present this information and these findings on St. Louis County based on this very extensive needs assessment, and it is extensive. And then parlay that into an ask. But I think we need to be very synchronized before we go out and start talking to our council members about exactly what that messaging is going to be. But I think that will be extremely beneficial because it's so tangible. So
When do you think you'll have that?
Well, and I'd have to review the timeline, so the surveys are still being circulated. I think September 16th is when the cutoff is, so we should know something, I'm thinking within 30 days of that.
Mid-October. Yeah.
So maybe we're kind of lost in the mass of this. Just with the upcoming election, there's just a lot going on. So I think, looking at the first of the year.
So as Claire was saying, the plan right now that she's putting forward is, she's looking. it's a small steering committee that's looking at forming a budget, going after foundation support for the education campaign.
Forming leadership first,
Forming leadership
then
first,
go after funding.
then go after funding,
Then the community voice.
and then hiring someone to manage the project.
Campaign manager, right?
Yeah, we did last time. I will tell you that another reason for the Maryland Mission Fund, you know, seeing this, you know, doing the polling is we have been hearing from many organizations that do advocacy work for children that they're moving forward with different initiatives to put on the ballot for kids. And while we are waiting, funding's moving forward and people are voting on things for kids, and we're not trying to pin one against the other, but the older adult population continues to grow and the funding continues to be cut. And so it's by 2030 in the state, we will actually have more people of 60 and over than we will have 19 and younger. But the funding is simply not there to support the programs and services. That was, I think, the one real issue that we were hearing was from these advocacy groups for kids is they're going to keep moving forward with asking for tax increases. And while we're waiting, and we thought this doesn't make sense to continue to wait.
We probably have to use the AARP model. I mean, if they keep going lower, they're gonna be recruiting people that.
Yeah.
They just, you know, that whole, we're not competing with them. But you're right, the funding resources are limited and the messaging has to be so clear so that what we have to say about it, because we have population on our side, the numbers on our side, we need the funding as much or more than anyone. And you gotta be able to say.
The other thing is because of the polling information saying that they don't trust county government, the beauty of this is these funds are not part of the city. Our funds are not part of the city of St. Louis government. It is it is in a separate account that's overseen by the 7-member board. And, you know, that gives at least credibility, yeah, to it.
Are there any kind of rules of thumb on the percentage of the funding that goes towards the administrative tasks versus actual handout to grants?
No, there really isn't, but I can tell you that, you know, our board has from the very beginning prioritized having a very low administrative budget and making sure, like, for example, in the very first year, your funds are going to come in December and January. We had our first grants out by June, 6 months later. The board wanted those funds in the community. They didn't want to be stockpiling money and they wanted the funds out there. So we were, and it was just me at that time. It was one staff person.
And I'm not sure that you would recommend that again.
I would not recommend that again. I think what you can do is really, the beauty that we had and that you will also have is we had needs assessment that we built into the planning. So we knew how to use the funding. You will have that as well. The beauty that you will also have is the board of the City of St. Louis Senior Fund has voted overwhelmingly that if it is passed in the county to help train whoever your administrative staff is on the governance structure. So you won't have to figure it out like I did. It'll be all there for you and you can choose what things you want and what you don't want.
So what I was hearing from you was that that message isn't necessarily helpful in the vote.
I would cast that as looking at 50 counties and best practices.
Yeah, it's really not intended as a message. It's more intended for you all to know that, like, for example, we were fortunate that we were able to share office space and back office support from the Mental Health Board and the Children's Service Fund. Because they were also a levy tax and they also were separate from the city government. Because of that, we were able to learn how to structure, you know, the St. Louis City Senior Fund. And then we also were able to learn from the other senior levy funds that were larger on the Kansas City side. Now that we've developed a statewide association, we have the whole process set up for any county that's wanting to pass a senior levy fund.
I'm a big believer in the power of language. Rainforest means something different to people than jungle, wetlands, swamp, or, the same thing. And we've learned over the years that people don't like innovative and they don't like known and improved necessarily when it comes to things like this, but they do like best practices. It sounds conservative. Same thing. Implementing, say, best practices is the same thing as making a change for the better, but best practices sounds conservative. The older I get, the more I'm into the kind of the power of words and how they resonate. It's not what you're trying to do. It's a lot of it is how you talk about it.
It's very exciting, I think.
Yes.
I really applaud Mayor-elect Mission Fund for taking the lead. The last time, we would not have a St. Louis City Senior Fund if it wasn't for Mayor-elect. And I applaud them for taking the lead again, and Claire for taking the lead again. This time it's saying, well, let's just see what the people think about this. So thank you.
So it would be helpful to us to have kind of an understanding of what the ask is of our commission. And then in another meeting, we can formally vote on that. I think informally, since we've been support, this is, this is attacking something that we've been talking about for years.
I know.
And so we're very supportive as a commission.
Thank you. That's really, I didn't know what we were getting into. I think not only with the ask, but the messages. I think we'll be working on this. When do you all meet next?
We meet once a month, so it'll be the first Thursday of the month.
Talk about timeline.
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah, take it into gear, Claire. That's important. This is, Jamie and I are both faith people, and we feel like this is a God thing. Really do.
Let me ask one question in terms of the survey and what have you, but in the last month, the county executive has been requested to provide monitoring services for a number of agencies. And he said, we can't do it, we don't have the staff. Now, to me, that says we don't have the money. And I was kind of turned off on that, by that is somewhat negative. And I'd be interested if this is on the minds of the voters since the surveys, the results and all that. Does that play out as a negative as we try and move forward? And I really don't know what the solution is, but I do know that agencies need to be monitored or whatever, but to say we don't have any staff is, maybe I misunderstood.
No, it's, I don't want to give a tactless response to that, but I think the more this is set up as independent of county government, county government's role is to collect the money.
Yeah, it actually, according to the state statute, it is completely separate from county government. We do our own audits. We have, all of our meetings are open. I report to the Missouri Ethics Commission. So no, this is not, if this fund passes, this does not become part of county government at all. It is a separate entity.
And repeat that, and repeat that, and repeat that.
And to make that clear, because first thing I thought of when I read that on the front page is what this might be and how it might affect us.
I think we could spin this to our benefit. Just think of the past couple of years when we've gone in front of the county council annually, giving our report and asking for specific funding for certain needed activities. The only funding we ever were involved in getting was for the grant pads. Everything else, they've said, oh, that sounds like a great idea, goodbye. We've been asking for a study similar to the city's study on home repairs. And they said, sounds really interesting. Crickets. And we made an ask related to your study. Again, nothing. So this would be a way to say, We're not asking you for money. In fact, we will get money to do the things that we've been asking you to do and you've been unable to do.
I think that's a good.
Yeah, that's a good point right there. I would also say the next time that we go before the county council for funding, and it may have already been done, so forgive me if I'm being somewhat redundant in this. But know the funding sources they have available for the things that we want to do. Because to ask them in a blanket way, they will always put us off and say, that sounds good, but we don't have the money. And I'm going to give you a specific example quickly. The American Rescue Plan and money, ARPA, for the grant pads and, you know, some other structural things like that. You can buy 50 of them for X number of dollars per unit. This is what we need, and we know that ARPA money can be spent for that. Go in knowing that, that's a resource, ask for that. And with that, that gives them cause to pause because they know that we've done some research and we know whatever the funding sources are that they have for some of the things that we know we want and that they can't fund. But the general ask will never get us where we need to go.
So to that point, when I was trying to get a summit together for the home repair discussion, my representative said, go to home human services. Well, I just heard at this meeting, human services budgets been slashed. So I'm not very optimistic about it.
We just do some independent research and figure that out and before we go in for the ask.
I think that was the tying back to my question then was to say we have listened to council for the past several years when they've said they're disinterested or unable to support older adults by supporting this tax, and we have said okay, and then we've gone back and we continue to have this commission that has zero budget, and so that's been very frustrating. And there have even been appointments. It's been difficult to find people to serve because we don't even have a budget to affect change other than through whatever work we do. Just by communicating with someone or partners, some collaborations. So I think it's really important now that we take the lead and we really serve in the role that we're charged to serve in, and that is to influence that change. So I feel very strongly that we need to sort of shift mentalities from accepting, whatever we hear in those committee of the whole meetings or through our correspondence with our leadership, and that we need to be the ones affecting change and growing that interest and that action-oriented group.
And the data will help that. Yes, yeah, I think it'll be so important. And I know last time we met with the executive page, he still was hitting the pause button on this discussion, although indicated it was more timing.
Right.
And so, we're talking about, a year and a half from now. It's when we're looking at it on the ballot, and that's a really, really long time, especially in politics. And we'll have good data and I think between this data and this data, it should be pretty compelling.
How will these survey results be shared with the county council and with the executive?
We don't know just yet. I think my simple mind would say, keep it, condense the messaging and give them the message and say we have the data as you want to see it. I don't think we need to give them all the, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe you tell us.
So last time what we did is I met with each county council member individually and the county executive along with a community member because there wasn't a council at that time. Carol and I met with Dr. Page, who was a county council member. We brought in someone from their district who was supportive of the senior levy tax. And we asked them, we took the polling results and it was broken down by the county council district. So then we went and said, here is your members. This is the people you represent. are in favor of putting this on the ballot, please put this on the ballot. I was very, very surprised that we had overwhelming support from all but two, and at that time, and the county executive at the time. And what was really interesting to me was many of the county council members were either older adults themselves or had family members and said, you know, you're the first person that's ever come to talk to me about the needs of older adults. And then can you help me find some services for my mother? You know, and so it was, so we're thinking again this time that the next step is to form the steering committee, start forming some of these committees. Once the steering committee is formed and funds can then be raised, we'll be able to hire someone as a project manager, and then and then the steering committee will probably make a formal request of this committee to see how you want to be involved.
And I'll get your information packaged. We're ready to do this.
The stakeholder program I talked about is more than just getting help for the referendum. It's getting people informed. It's also being a bigger us, asking the county council to put this on the ballot. You know, in my mind, I'd want to make it an awfully hard decision to make, not to let people vote on this when I've got people from various organizations coming to me, various segments coming to me and saying it's important that we put this on the ballot. You know, just thinking out loud, you know, in St. Louis County, something like 80% of the fire runs that a fire district or a municipal fire department makes is medical. Vast majority of those medical runs go to older adults' house. You know, this is a natural to get support from both the cities that have fire departments, but also those massive fire districts that are across the county. That's just one of probably 10 examples like that, if not more, where somebody on the council understands that this has got a lot of kind of momentum and organizational support around it. And I forgot what you said the petition drive would cost, but we want to avoid having to spend that money. Petition drives are ridiculously expensive and they are hugely time consuming. You have to hire a firm to do it.
I might want to just add structure-wise, so far, the Lutheran Senior Services has agreed again to be the fiscal sponsor. So, you know, we're working out the details of that. That's great for foundations. You can write a check. Everyone has to write a check. It goes to one entity. We are building this budget. We can only do so much, Jane and myself, and a handful of other people until the steering committee. So we're trying to gather enough and narrow the options intelligently so that this committee can really take root and start leading. Chris Bakley, who's the executive director and CEO of the Cardinal Ritter Senior Services Fund, is the co-chair of the initiative. Yeah. We have, so that's important. And also the other very important aspect for us, we're very clear on, is we have to make sure that we include all voices, and that means North County. And how do we best reach? Wendy Orson runs the Behavioral Health Network, and there is a Bridges to Recovery, which involves about 80 churches in North City and County, and they are already on board to support this. We don't, you know, we cannot go forward unless all voices, all county districts are included. It's just too important. It needs to be a collective, as Rod says, a collective voice moving this forward. We feel we can do this with your support.
There are lots of organizations and leadership countywide that I would think would be extremely supportive and helpful. Just off the cuff, I'm thinking of the Parks and Rec directors in all of the county community centers, and I mean, they're serving this community directly. To see how many pickleball courts have been. So I would think that the Parks and Rec directors would be really helpful.
You know, I live in Brentwood now, and I know we have an active program, but I don't know where in Brentwood city government that's housed. I'm guessing you're right, it's in Park and Rec.
And it's county, you know, the centers.
I get the newsletter every month and I see a section about that, so I know they're doing a lot.
You know, at the steering committee, comprehensive plans, we've been having our meetings at various community centers throughout the county. And I'll tell you, every time I show up at one of these 8 o'clock meetings, I see a lot of people walking around the gym and, you know, and it's our demographic.
We've done work in Hazelwood over the years and they have their unfortunately named the Hazelnut program.
Been there for many decades.
Yes, they, careful name, but they love it, you know.
We could probably let you all
Yes,
go
thank you.
and get back to your meeting, but thank you for the opportunity to come and you're the first group to hear about this.
We welcome your feedback.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Oh, yeah. Can we get clear on, and we can, I might have a card. CLARE HUNDELT. And my email is RSL. Okay, well, my email is Claire dot, well, Claire,
I think I got everybody's emails here. Do you want me to
please
email
just
them?
email my contact is great. It's claire.undel.mmf.stl.org. MMF, Marriott Christian Fund, STL.org. And we'll send our contact information, so.
I just had one last point. I'm building on what Lisa Hotley said, because I think it's really important. And that is, we have built a relationship, I think, with the county council, especially based on our last presentation to a committee of a whole. I think they were attentive in a way that they have not always been, and appreciative of the discussions that we brought to the table. And I think we have built some strong relationships, and especially in North County, I think we've built strong relationships with county council members in that area. So, so I think as a commission, we have some support I think we can provide in these arenas.
Which wasn't there last time, was it? Yeah. You were there with us.
So you're invited today at 3 o'clock at Richmond Heights Community Center. I think you all were sent an invitation from Marillac. Please, love for you to join, and you can get this, but a lot more information, and you'll see the other 70 organizations who join.
And the purpose really is to engage, to inform and engage the provider groups, the community to get together around the house. The audience is primarily the nonprofit sector and the leaders and those stakeholders are invested in seeing this.
Is it 3 o'clock?
3 o'clock at the Heights.
That's Richmond Heights.
Richmond Heights, yes. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much for the presentations and your time, and
Thank you.
this is really great information for us. Continue to study.
Good to be a part of it.
Yeah, thank you. So,
Trying to get it down, you're right. Not doing it. Oh, that does not belong to me.
Oh, it does not.
No, you gotta hear. Yeah. Thank you very much. Glad it worked out. Let's touch and go for a little bit. So can we discuss maybe the general contours of what a resolution could be that we could vote on in October?
You could, but again, you'd have to have it as an agenda item that you'd be voting on in October on that agenda. But yeah, you can talk about what your desire is.
Yeah, I think unofficially, do we have a consensus that we'd like to see something on our agenda in October that would formalize our support for this effort?
I think the sense is yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what would that look like? And what I heard, and maybe we can see if anybody heard things differently than I, but what I heard was that this effort and the Marillac Mission Fund and the Senior Fund of the City sees us as a real advocate, ally for this effort. And also beyond that, if it's voted on and succeeds, they see us as the logical leaders of the board. It would manage this funding. We're talking about $10 million to $15 million annually to distribute to needy, proposers. So it seems to me that we have a vested interest in this succeeding, because what we've been doing over the many, many years that we've all been involved in this commission is asking for things that we couldn't receive. This is a way of getting the things that we wanted to see happen through funding that is independent of the county council.
Are we able to just have this as a discussion topic in new business? And then after our discussion, formulate some sort of a motion?
I would advise that the actual voting take place next time. So I think this is more deciding what you're going to potentially do and then have it be a proper vote with discussion next time.
Yes, I'd like to put the actual resolution proposal on the agenda. So what I'd like to do is have a sense for what that is that we were going to propose.
And Dan, just to clarify something that you mentioned, I know that you talked about how there's 7 members on board and then to be 7 people here and everything. Just to be clear, is that the Older Adult Commission has its own set of priorities of what you're doing, and it's informative based, and so therefore any sort of board that's put in the future, it's not necessarily the ordinances would have to be changed to allow that, and we also have to look at any sort of thing. So it's not necessary that you guys would be leading any sort of board for funds. You have your own confines right now for what the Older Adult Commission can do, and it's in an informative base to provide to the council.
Personally, I feel that that is a conversation and a decision for maybe a later point in time. That we would take, that it would be our role to do that, or I don't know, I mean, maybe.
So there are some of us on this commission that would have to recuse from that board.
Right.
Myself as well as others that are, running in a municipality, role or whatever. So.
Exactly.
So just thinking out loud, I'm wondering if this commission chair, and does this conflict with what you were just saying? Could our chair be on that steering committee or on that board? And with that,
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's just something so far down the line that we have to see what the requirements are for somebody being on the board. And, the Older Adult Commission has its own separate agenda, which is entirely, for what you guys are doing is entirely different from that.
so rather than this entire commission becoming that board, that there is a person from this commission that would sit on that board. So that wouldn't.
Or maybe even several people that don't have a conflict of interest because my understanding, the way it's structured, the 7 members would be a member from each congressional district. Correct.
Council district. Yeah.
Council district.
That would be the logical way to do it. And since we already have members from all of those council districts, there's some logic to that, but I don't know the legality of it. And that's.
Have more than 7.
But we're talking about this 2 years from now. That we're dealing with this, whereas what we have on the table for next month, as I understand it, is do we as a commission want to support this, to support pursuing further the senior fund? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, and how, but I think a little bit more detail, I think, about how we would support it.
Right. Serving as and this would not be the language, you don't need to type it.
Well, I'm just.
But I think serving as the conduit with members of the county council, since that is really our charge. And so to serve as educators with the county council, and, do we play a role in, do we want to vote on playing a role in being a liaison with members of the county council, educating on the senior fund potential for St. Louis County. I mean, I question, do we want to have another meeting of committee of the whole to roll out the data and have the conversation?
Do you want to have the needs assessment data along with
Yeah.
survey,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Side by side,
Yeah.
presentation.
Yes, and do a presentation, do a PowerPoint presentation, and then give them the opportunity that we always do with committee of the whole is to open it up for their questions. And then play a role possibly in follow up, or just a process person of meeting one-on-one with members, to have further discussions and to do the ask, but
What we,
I don't know how you.
so we meet with, the county, the commission of, the council of the whole annually. Can we ask for a special session?
Could it be, and/or could it be what Jamie was describing, where individuals went to their council persons?
Yeah.
With that same information and to.
Remember that we can, as council members, at any time engage with, or as commission members, we can at any time engage with our council members. The only reason for a vote is when we want to speak as as a committee. Otherwise, you're free to, per our bylaws, to speak on behalf of anything as long as you're speaking personally. And so if I understand it correctly, then what we're looking at is to say that the Older Adult Commission supports pursuing the senior fund initiative. That's really all we're looking to do so that we can speak to our council members and say that we are on board with this. Is that correct? Can it be this simple? Hello?
Lisa, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm there. You guys, I'm not sure if they are there.
I agree with you. And I agree exactly with what you're saying because we've had that same issue with the County Commission on Disabilities and the Governor's Council. And I agree with what your proposal is. I also don't feel that the county commission members should be automatically on that board.
I don't know that the group is back. I don't know that we are actually in the meeting anymore.
Okay. Okay. Just between us.
Yes, I think so. I'm going to actually just put that in the text.
Okay.
Are you still there, Sue?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I'm not.
We're
I
not,
think-
we're not there. And I've got to run. I mean, meeting's gone on long enough and I've got, what I'll do is I'll send Susan, some notes about what County Commission on Disabilities said regarding the voter registration and, universal design. And there was something about the taxi cab association. So I'll send her that. I just can't hang on to this anymore. I've got other things I need to do.
Okay, see you, Sue.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
adult has to do to be able to vote and their vote will be counted in this election.
So we're working with the League of Women Voters and we could probably get something, and I'm sure we have things. Why don't I just see what we have? We'll just send out confirmation.
That's something that the Maryland Commission should be thinking about in their steering committee discussion.
We've taught only weeks to do it, so.
Yeah.
This vote. Yeah, for this vote, but in the future, and I noticed that on the voter registration cards, I just did that for our city when we had a town hall meeting. I had wanted it to be available there for anybody who really wants to pay attention to that. I always notice at the bottom, what was the last date of those voter registration cards and when was the last date of the information that they shared.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
That would be appreciated.
Any share outs? I have a couple. Since our last meeting, I've been asked to join the Home Repair Network Advisory Council. We had the first meeting last week. And so that's something that I've been reaching out to any ally related to home repairs in the city of Mackenzie over the past many months. And was finally able to sit down with the leadership for the HRN Home Repair Network this past month, and they invited me on their council. And one of the council members, advisors is Todd Sloan. On the subcommittee related to policy. We'll see what we can do. That they have a much larger network than I was able to develop on my own. So I'm glad that they are willing to be a partner to us. And, you know, they've been focused on city home repairs, but my voice there is to talk about the counties.
Good. Congratulations.
Yes, yeah.
I'd also like to report that we've been meeting almost monthly with the St. Louis County Comprehensive Plan, the STLCO 2050, which is the comprehensive plan for, you know, they do one every 40 years, and we're in the heat of developing the comprehensive plan for 2050. And there are lots of members from, you know, like organizations, a lot of not-for-profits that are involved in this, and a lot of them are very, very interested in the home repair discussion, as well as senior services in general. So the last meeting, we had city maps. It was a land use discussion. It was really talking about, you know, what sort of functions should occur throughout the county that would support many of the goals of the county, such as growth. And there's an imbalance in, you know, skilled versus non-skilled workers and availability of work in different communities. And one of the biggest issues is affordable housing throughout the county. And so we all broke up into different groups and just drew on these maps to decide, well, there's some, you know, a little commercial strip here. Wouldn't it be nice if instead of just commercial, it had mixed use, which is retail and housing and other functions throughout the city. And another group was focusing on how would transportation tie into that, you know, supportive growth of housing. And people are suggesting, you know, different paths for public transportation that would benefit growth in those areas. So it's a fascinating discussion.
Well, we're very fortunate to have Dan serve, because when we met with Dr. Page, he was talking about this, and we asked if he was representing older adults. He said, "You're absolutely right," and Dan would be served. So it's
I think
very, very positive, because, you know, fortunately, it's not necessarily on people's radar screens. So we're
I was
very,
gonna say, I have not heard anything.
we're very,
It's very typical, but it's kind of, you know.
It's a shame and land use.
Go ahead.
There's participants from Urban Land Institute, from U.S. Green Building Association, International Institute, you know, a lot of housing organizations, a lot of representation from not-for-profits in like all over the county. So
And our county is kind of unusual in that area because perception means a lot too. And so if we can start, this is what I was telling the board and several of the mayors, we can start to change the perception. The crime rate is down, but nobody really knows that. And like, for example, the municipality I work for, we have 390 parcels, lots in properties that are owned by the city. So when you start talking about affordable housing, I mean, right now, all of that is green space except 75 lots.
well, it's funny that you mentioned that.
That's not-
You know, the potential for growth for housing is in the unincorporated counties, far north and far south.
Yes. Yes.
And it was a big discussion.
Talk to you about
I
it.
just have one question for Lisa. So has everyone filled out the survey? Okay, I'm obsessed with the survey. I think it's really important that individuals are completing this survey and we want to make sure that it's not just completed by professionals, that it's completed by individuals that benefit or could benefit or just have a voice in what we're going to be doing in terms of programming going forward. So I think everybody has received it, but what is the timeline is very, they're going to shut it down in about a week, right?
I want one. I don't want
To,
Well, it's an online.
Yeah, I would love to see if it's still.
Or is it still active? Maybe.
I put 2 stars by there. So get one.
Well, I think I sent it out 6 months ago or something.
I'll send it again. I'll send it to all of you again.
and you're saying anyone can fill it out?
Older adults and individuals with disabilities can fill it out. So I did send it to both Sue Orton and Linda Baker. Just say, people in the disability community.
This is
So,
how to share out with the
Yeah.
seniors.
yes, they're gonna need to fill it out. I mean,
Can
yeah.
you get it?
Yeah, but it's online.
But
Yeah, that's why-
there's also an ability to do it through the phone and
Yeah.
I think the paper, we had lots of paper that we sent out too, but I think that's probably too late. So it either online or there'll be a phone number people can call.
Now, is this just for like homeowner people or are there? I just was
This is
wondering.
well, and it takes, well, I'm slow. To me, it's 10 to 15 minutes.
I wish I had a way, today to get hold of that. I can get a couple copies, hard copies, because, we're having a neighborhood watch.
Can you go by the Ferguson Senior Center?
They make a note. I'm going to the mural.
But then you send it to us online, we can just.
I can print.
I can.
I don't know what you
It was an online.
Yeah, it's just one
survey.
of those, that you have to just follow through the process.
Oh, my
Yeah.
But all it's online, listen.
We had paper that we sent out.
I wish I could get a hold of that.
They'll
Because
have
we're
it at
having a
Ferguson.
neighborhood watch.
They'll have it at Ferguson, I'm almost certain, but I'm gonna call Christina up there and ask her.
And I could get it out there.
And she could probably make you copies, okay? At the Ferguson, do you know where that is? Ferguson Senior
Off the
Center?
chambers, isn't it?
No, it's where the community center is in Ferguson.
I'll find it. I mean, I'll
Tucked back in a neighborhood. Washington Elizabeth.
It's off of Hudson. Off of Hudson.
It used to be a church. It's where the community center is.
Sorry, I'm gonna have I don't know if we can ask for,
If you.
That's it, yeah.
Oh, you have to let yourself out.
yeah.
And
ask for a motion. Well, before we close the meeting, I want to mention that the next meeting will be October 3rd. It will be a WebEx meeting.
Just statewide.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell her that you're coming. I'm gonna call
Who's the
Christina.
one for Christine?
Maybe we could try to do one every other meeting.
Do you have a way to, did you want to do November?
Once I get,
Let's do November here.
the timeline would be, but, I'm gonna try, I'm gonna make it away.
We have anyone would like to make a motion to adjourn? Any second? All in favor?
sorry, just make sure.
Okay, all right. We're adjourning the meeting.
All in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye. All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, do you want me to take you?
Would that be fine?
I can,
Good.
as long
Good.
as I know where we're going.